Hi everyone, I'm Stolar Romanian, the co-organizer for San Francisco Scala meetup. Today I have Seth Tisue of Lightbend with us. He's here for a meetup and hoping to catch up with Seth, as it's been a few months since you last were here.
Hi, nice to see you again.
Nice to
Nice to be speaking again.
Yeah. Have you settled fully in San Francisco now? I remember it wasn't long ago you moved here.
Yeah, it's been a little over 2 years. Yeah, I'm very happy here.
That's cool. That's cool. Great. Are you? How about telling us a little bit about what you do at Lightbend?
I've been at Lightbend for about 3 years now, and I was hired for the Scala team, the team that maintains the Scala compiler and the Scala standard library, as well as trying to kind of organize and help the open source ecosystem around Scala.
Great. Do you try to help new contributors contribute more as a part of a lot of your work?
Yeah, so there's 5 of us on the team, and we all try to be helpful with open source contributors, but I would say, yeah, of the 5 of us, it's me especially who's out there like every day in the chat rooms and so forth, like interacting with people.
Great, great. How easy is it to become a contributor for Scala if you've never contributed to a programming language before?
Well, as it so happens, I have a talk on that exact subject. Nice. It's called "You Are a Scala Contributor," and I gave that talk earlier this year in New York at Scala Days, and then I'll also be giving it here in San Francisco in November as part of Scale by the Bay.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to that. That's going to be great to help get started.
Yeah.
Do you just concentrate on the Scala language or the libraries, the whole ecosystem that goes with it?
I try to. The talk is sort of organized in ascending level of difficulty. So it's like, if you want to get started, here's the easiest thing. I mean, because some people maybe have 0 experience with open source or might have, as yet, very little experience with Scala.
Yeah.
If people are new to Git and GitHub, if people are new to Scala itself, there's still ways that people can contribute. So the easiest repos in the Scala org to contribute to are the website repos.
Nice.
And then I'd say the next easiest is the Scala modules. So these are sort of satellites of the Scala standard library, like Scala XML and Scala parser combinators. Those are small self-contained code bases. The next easiest is to work on the Scala standard library. And then the most difficult thing is working on the compiler itself.
Yeah. On the subject of the compiler, there's been a lot of buzz around the next versions of Scala coming. You want to tell us a little bit about where we are with the current 2.12 and the upcoming releases and how we're going to move on to .e over the coming months and years?
Yeah. So the Scala 2.11 series is pretty much done at this point. No further releases planned. We're getting close to winding up the 2.12 series as well. So we plan to build Scala 2.12.7 this week or next, and that will have some performance improvements, improvements to make the output of the compiler more deterministic, and bug fixes and stuff. And that could be the last 2.12 series release. There might be a couple more.
Feels like it just came out to 2.12 came out yesterday. To the
Yeah.
Truth, yeah. Everyone's book's going to be outdated now, yeah? No, sorry, carry on.
So, and then Scala 2.13 is in milestones currently. So we just did milestone 5 a few weeks ago. We hope to have a release candidate later this year, and then release 2.13 final either right at the end of this year or very early in 2019. So the theme of the Scala 2.13 release is the total overhaul of the collections library. So that the old API dates back to Scala 2.8, which was so long ago I can't even think when that was, 2010, something like that.
Yeah.
So we took a once a decade opportunity to overhaul that.
Great. If I'm moving to 2.13, am I going to have any compatibility issues with the collections library? Do I have to change any lines of code to make it work? Or will it?
Probably you'll have to make some changes. So it's not a radical redesign. So the goal was that most ordinary Scala code that uses collections won't need changes. But I think almost every real project will need at least some changes around the edges.
Great. What would you say is is a good migration strategy to have in mind if you do want to upgrade your project?
I guess it depends on whether you have a need to cross-build between multiple Scala versions. So I think library authors typically support the last 2 or 3 major Scala versions. We are offering a library called Scala Collection Compat that makes cross-building easier. It's something that you don't need if you're only doing one Scala version at a time, but will help with cross-building. For sort of ordinary application code, there are we have a set of Scala Fix rules. So Scala Fix is a tool that will can identify problems in source code and also suggest and perform rewrites. So it'll not just find things that need to change, but it'll actually change them for you.
Oh, nice.
So we recommend that for people migrating to 2.13.
Is that a completely open source project, or is that something that's supported by Lightbend?
It's totally open source. I think most of the work on it has been done at the Scala Center, but we're contributing to that at Lightbend as well.
Nice. That's awesome. I hear a lot of buzz about Scala 3, and you know what social media is like. You got some people who just like to be trolls and be very pessimistic about it and bring up the Python 3.2 analogy of it not going smoothly from moving to 3. Others like me who are excited about having a new version of Scala as well. When can we look forward to Scala 3, and do you think it's going to be a big headache migrating to it? Or do you think people will start migrating to it when it's out?
I think there's been a change in the temperature in the community on this since Martin's keynotes at Scala Days this year. So I think before those keynotes, the general feeling is that people were worried. And then, seeing the talk myself and also attending Scala Days and talking to people, it really seemed like that keynote got people on board.
That's cool.
So anyone who's worried and hasn't seen it, I really recommend it.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
And I guess another piece of the answer to that is that the main theme of Scala 2.14 will be aligning with Dottie, the compiler
that's cool.
that's going to become Scala 3.
Kind of like a stepping stone release to move towards the migration.
Yeah, so we're going to eliminate as many differences between Scala 2 and Scala 3 as we can in that stage, so that when it comes time to flip the switch to 3, there won't be that much left for people to do.
I think I always find conversations like that on social media quite funny, because I think a lot of people are worried for the wrong reasons, because of the whole Python debacle that happened, which has nothing to do with Scala, of course. Yeah, it's kind of like they've seen it done by another programming language once, so then you're cautious.
Yeah, I think we have 2 big advantages over Python, the Python 3 situation, and this is, I'm just repeating stuff from Martin's keynote, but our 2 big advantages are we have types. So, most of the time, if something breaks, the compiler can tell you. You don't have to wait till runtime. It's just night and day compared to the migration situation for an untyped language like Python. The other reason that I think this is going to go smoothly is that a lot of the work on Scala 2.14 and Scala 3 will be about making it so that they can use the same libraries.
That's great.
So we won't have to wait for every dependency to upgrade to Scala 3, before we can flip our projects.
Great, that's awesome. When can we look forward to 3, or is there's no way to know that?
I have to calculate it in my head. So
Yeah.
so we've 2.13 is coming out end of this year, beginning of next. So I think we have comes out to like 2021 or something.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like the type checking that you get with Scala is a big deal. It really does save you a lot of headaches you get with runtime problems that you don't get with languages of Python. So I totally agree with that reasoning. Great. Now, what is your talk tonight about here at the meetup?
So it's called Compiler Plugins 101. Compiler plugins is maybe a slightly esoteric topic, but I hope to, and my original idea was to talk about how to write them. The talk came about because I've now written 3 compiler plugins on the job.
Nice.
So in order to, but the number of people who are actually going to write one is probably fairly small. So the first half of the talk is like what are compiler plugins, what existing compiler plugins are popular. I think it turns out that almost any Scala project is using at least one and perhaps several. People aren't always aware that they're using them because they're sometimes packaged as...
Yeah, when you create a scaffolding or something, it just shows up.
Yeah, well, I think often how people get them is they add an SBT plugin, and it's done that way for convenience. They don't necessarily know that there's a compiler plugin behind the scenes.
That's cool. That's awesome. It's something I've never done, but I really want to get to know more about. So I'm really looking forward to your talk tonight. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Alexi, who's the main organizer of this meetup, of course, and who's the big force behind the Scale on the Bay conference that you're going to talk about in November, couldn't be here tonight. So he has emailed me a question for you to ask as well.
Yeah, a big question.
A big question, yeah. So he warned you about this big question. Are you okay if I proceed to ask Alexi's question? Yeah. Okay, great. Like you said, it's a big question. He has big shoes to fill, and I don't want to fill it, so I'm going to read it out. Some of the languages in widespread use in our community, like Java, are not pure functional languages, but we can still immediately see thoughtfully done software. So the theme of Scale by the Bay is thoughtful software engineering as a concept parent to functional programming. Can you think of some patterns and distinguishing characteristics of thoughtful programming?
I can try. So it's an interesting phrase, thoughtful programming.
Yeah, it is.
And I like it because it doesn't, it has a kind of air of humility to it.
It does, yeah.
I guess to me, thoughtful programming is about slowing down. I think we have a problem in this industry of thinking that the way to get something done fast is just to bang it out and get it done as soon as possible. And that can be true at the beginning of a project. But in the long run, that approach actually slows you down because you have more bugs, higher maintenance costs. So when I hear thoughtful programming, I think longer term thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you work with a team that's growing, I think that philosophy is very good to ensure good thoughtful quality with for the future of your code base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. The last thing I was going to ask you is how's Lightbend doing? Is there anything we should know about Lightbend? Are they doing anything new and exciting that you want to talk about?
Well, at Lightbend, I'm mostly focused on what the Scala team does.
Right.
Lightbend, the company as a whole, does a lot of other stuff. Akka, Play, the web framework, Lagom for microservices, and then we also have a lot of offerings around DevOps, deployment, scaling up systems to big clusters. I don't know anything about that stuff really, right? So as I sort of watch it going on at Lightbend, and I wish it well. But it's kind of outside of my expertise.
No, it's an awesome company to be part of. I've always, as a Scala fan, I've always looked up to Lightbend, and before when they were called TypeSafe.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely.
And I'm incredibly grateful to the company for supporting the Scala team and treating us and all of their employees so well. It's a great place to work.
That's awesome. Great. Well, I'm all excited about tonight's meetup to hear about how to get by with compiler plugins more than I currently do. So I look forward to it. Thanks so much, Seth.
Okay.
For talking to me. Thank you.